Welcome to another episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Carrie and Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justmorefix.com or on Twitter at justmorefix. If you like us, you can support us at patreon.com, or you can give us a rating or review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to sit down and talk with Stacy Dellorfano. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Chris from All Things Good and Nerdy, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You're about to listen to our interview with Stacy Dellorfano. You may notice that the audio is off in this one a little bit from what we normally do, especially the first 30 seconds. But that's because we recorded this at Gen Con this year in the Contessa gaming area. There was lots of awesome gaming and all kinds of stuff happening. Very busy place. So without any further ado, here is Stacy Dellorfano.
All right, so we're here at Gen Con 2018 with Stacy, and why don't you tell us who you are?
I am Stacy Dellorfano. I am the founder of Contessa, which is an organization that is an intersectional organization that pushes for diversity in gaming through positive representation. So all of our games that are led here, we've got all of our games and our LARPs and our panels and our workshops, which we have about 106 of this year at Gen Con, are led by marginalized people, and that's either people of color, women, non-binary people, LGBTQ plus people, disabled people. We have a pretty wide list of what it means to be marginalized. And we have a really diverse group here today. It's really nice.
And Contessa actually started as an online con group, is that right?
Yes.
And so that was how long ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the big push for you to do that? Obviously it's needed, but what really set you over the edge and got you to do this?
What was happening in gaming was that it was clear that marginalized people were getting involved, but particularly women and people of color were basically getting... the only reason that they were asked to talk about anything is if they were to talk about their issues, or to tell other people how they can make games that would better, target them, and those kind of things. They were never talked about, you rarely would see them on game design panels or on panels about anything else, or, anything along those lines. And I got sick and tired of talking about, I'm non-binary now, but I was a woman then. I got sick and tired of talking about being a woman in gaming and what that meant and what I felt about this issue or that issue. And I'm like, I want a game. I want to play games. I want to run games. I want to write games. I want to do this stuff. I don't want to sit here and have these conversations over and over again. And wouldn't it be nice if I could do that with some other people too? So I started pulling it together online, and our first 2 years were online, and this is actually our 4th year at Gen Con. So the first year really was online, and then we got the invite to go to Gen Con, and it's just exploded like crazy.
So I think I probably first heard about you guys about 3 years ago, and then last year it seemed like it really started to kind of snowball into something bigger and bigger, and then you over 100 events this year. So you guys aren't doing Gen Con next year, is what I've heard, right?
Yeah, we're not.
Why is that?
Gen Con's really expensive. As much as we love coming here and getting this really big audience that we have, it costs us about $10,000, and that's a lot of money, and that's largely in transportation and hotel stays, housing, and it doesn't all go back into Contessa because we have to spend so much money just to get Contessa here, and we have to pay for our HQ tables, all that kind of stuff, and it's just too expensive. Plus, I went through cancer last year. I had breast cancer, and I actually did all of this. I got Contessa set up for this year while I was going through chemo, while I was going through radiation, and it was such a major drain on me that I didn't have time to do anything else. And I write too, and I haven't had time to do that. So I'm like, okay, I need to pull it back a little bit. I've got yet another year's worth of treatments to go, and it's going to be like every 3 weeks. So I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this again next year. I mean, I need a break. But more importantly, this is kind of what's pulling us away from Gen Con, but we've started thinking about what if we put all of that money into local conventions that are just starting, that really want to have an inclusive goal. What if we could go and we could make that happen for them and help them out and put money into these local conventions, and then they could grow. And Gen Con needs us for, diversity's sake, and they love having us here, but we don't really up their numbers or anything. Gen Con's already huge, it's already like, it's the Super Bowl of gaming conventions. I say that as we're sitting in a stadium. So, we have we got a lot of our visibility came from being here. So, I love the last 4 years that we've been here. We've managed to grow a lot just because of Gen Con. But now I want to branch out and get our fingers everywhere so that we have Contessa all over the U.S. and maybe even in Europe and other places. We've been invited to a couple of cons in the UK. Yeah, in particular.
Is it more of like shifting gears then? Is that how you would kind of?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a little bit. And I've got, my staff has changed over the years, and the staff that I have now has a completely different set of skills than the staff that I had before. And we're starting to get more and more, like this year Atlas Games really came through for us. They gave us like board games and books on how to start your own friendly local gaming store, because that's the most thoughtful gift I think I've had anybody give marginalized GMs ever, because they're basically saying, we want you to run gaming stores, and so they did that pretty awesome. And we had White Wolf gave us a couple of things, World of Darkness things, and companies have really been putting a lot into us. And the money that we got in order to get here in the first place was a bundle that was created for RPG Now that came from I think it was 30 different publishers, and we just had tons of material in it. And it was a great price point, and people just got a ton of great stuff. And so they gave us all of that essentially. So it's great. The gaming community wants us. The publishing community wants us. Everybody can see how important diversity is. And we kind of have the reason, one of the big reasons I like this is because the first time a GM is really writing their game is when they start writing house rules. You're the first house rule that you write, all of a sudden you're a game designer now. If you write a house rule, you're a game designer, And we need more marginalized game designers. We need lots and lots and lots of them. And that's how we're going to be able to create this, this world that I want us to have, that's complete and diverse.
Let me ask you a kind of a question then. I know it's Gen Con is huge, Super Bowl of gaming, and you're 100% right. Do you think that you'll be able to have, I don't say this to diminish what's going on here, but a bigger impact on gaming by going to smaller conventions and being able to reach those, because you'll have like you said, you're swimming in an ocean here essentially, because Gen Con is so big. Right. But by going out to those and reaching more a grassroots level, for lack of a better word. Yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Right on. That's out, because when Lacey told me that this was going to be the last year, I was really kind of bummed and disappointed.
Oh yeah.
But I think with the caveat of what the direction, the shifting of direction, I think is a cool way to take things and have a maybe a larger impact in a smaller way. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly that. When two of the cons that we're going to this year are brand new, and they called us immediately. So we want to make this con, and we want to make it diverse, and we want to do all these kind of things. Will you come and help us? So, and that's a fantastic way to start, So they're just starting, and we want to be able to give them the exposure that they need to continue to grow, and even the money that they need to continue to grow, and those cons that they can actually afford to add us to their Kickstarter so that our airfare is covered or our housing is covered, all of those kind of things. When they're putting their budgets together, they can do that. And so we could spend more of our money on them and building our events and, doing all the little swag things that we do and the little prizes that we give away and all that kind of stuff. And I would really like to see their conventions grow and become, there's just such great people. And that's another part of it is when you go to a smaller convention like that, you really get to know the people who are running the convention. And you really get to know who they are and what they're about. And I really like all of the people in all of these conventions because of what they're about, and they're about this diversity and growing the gaming community.
How do you decide where you're going to go?
We do a lot of research. They send us an email saying that they want to be involved, and they want us to be involved. And then we say, okay, first of all, can you pay for it? And secondly, do you have a harassment policy? So we require every convention that we go to have a very clear harassment policy because we don't have one of our own. We go by the con that we're at. So Gen Con has a very clear harassment policy. So, no problem with that. And so every con that we go to, we absolutely require that to be a thing. And then all the only other things that we ask for is a little bit of help financially getting there and some space to run our games. And they've all been able to give us, plenty of space and that kind of stuff in order to help us grow.
So how many conventions do you have coming up this year? 4 or more.
4 Yeah. We're going to Detroit, the Detroit area twice. And then we're going to be and that's for TLD Con, which is the Loaded Die Con, which is going to be in downtown Detroit. It's actually in Corktown. They're really cool. They have like this gaming store, and they have hundreds of board games scattered around breweries in this area. And people can go and they can just play board games, and they come from this thing. And now they're bringing all of the board games into a brewery where they're going to be running a convention, which is really cool. And that very same weekend, the other half of Contessa is going to be at High Level Games, which is going to be in Atlanta City, in a casino. So that'll be a lot of fun too, and that's a brand new convention too. And before that, those are in October like 12th through the 14th. And before that, we're going to be at Queen City Conquest, which is actually next month. I'm barely going to get a chance to be home before I'm out again. And they're just such a fantastic group of people. It's just so fun to work with them. So and we've got like about 6 tables, and it's a really small con. So, we have like 100 things going on here, but we don't need that many at smaller conventions until we grow a little bit more. And then let's see what else is there. And then there's UConn, which is also in Detroit, which is a little bit more settled of a convention. They're like, to give you a range, like Queen City Conquest had about 350 people at it last year, and UConn had about a little over 1,000 people at it, and Gen Con has 60,000 people at it. Right? We touch people a little bit more,
more
personally. When we can do
just because I'm terribly selfish, there is also Hoosier Con in Indianapolis that is very small, not very small, but much smaller than Gen Con. So, if you wanted to still be in Indiana, you could look into that.
That wouldn't be bad.
Well, and I know you mentioned you're doing a smaller convention before. We went to Hoosier Con for the first time, and Gen Con is great, but it was so much more relaxed at the smaller conventions. It's just a different atmosphere.
Right.
Gen Con is just, it's Gen Con. You know?
And you can get to all of your events in 2 minutes or less.
Right. And a lot of them are connected to the same hotel, and you don't have to leave the hotel to go anywhere.
Right. So it's just different. So I know if there's people that if they don't necessarily do smaller cons, we were very, very pleasantly surprised when we went to Hoosier Con.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love Gen Con, but the smaller convention scene is just different, and it's so much fun. I had a great time.
Yeah, I think you get more gaming in at smaller conventions. It's much more gaming. You're there just to game. Mm-hmm. Gen Con, you're here to shop. You're here to see your friends. You're here to do all sorts of. You're here to do Gen Con.
Eat all the things.
Yeah. You go to a smaller convention. You're there to game, and you're going to game solidly the entire time.
So I have a question that kind of backtracks a statement that you made earlier. So you said that you'd like there to be more marginalized authors out there, especially in the gaming community.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that, but I was kind of wondering, what are some of your favorite books that are written by authors that are already in that community so that, maybe our listeners or even I could pick them up?
That's so hard. Let's see. I just picked up Harlem Unbound by Chris Spivey, which is up for some Ennies, actually. I had a friend of mine read one paragraph of it to me, and I was hooked. It's a beautiful book. It's very well written. I love it. And it's made by Chris Spivey.
As soon as I heard that he was doing it, because he wrote a scenario for Gen Con 1-to-1 that is really, really good.
Gumshoe 1-to-1.
Gen Con 1-to-1. In Gumshoe 1-to-1. And we saw him on a panel with Robin Laws talking about one GM, one player. And I was just amazed. It's so well put together and so well thought out. It's really, really, really good. And I haven't had a chance to look at Harlem Unbound, but I'm super excited to check it out because everything else that I've seen that he's done is so good.
Oh, it's so gorgeous. I wasn't even interested in Gumshoe until somebody showed me this, and I was like, oh, now I want this. Now I want to play this. Right. And I'm not a Cthulhu person either. Right. So, it's like, but I want to play this. There's that one. There's a Fiona Geist, one of our GMs. She's worked on a couple of smaller things at a gaming company called Tuesday Night Games. That's spelled Knight. Tuesday Night Games. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but it was a space kind of thing. There's not enough of them for me to be able to actually pull them all up. I don't play a lot of indie or story games, and there are a lot of marginalized people in indie or story games. So that's a harder one. I love Scrap Princess's work. There's like a ton of trans people that are kind of in the OSR area. There's like this little ribbon of trans people that are making really cool stuff, and I like that kind of stuff. I don't know what else I could think.
If it makes you feel better, I can't usually pinpoint stuff right off the top of my head, but I'm like, oh, I love this and this.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend Harlem Unbound, though. I mean, that's actually written by a person of color about a historical part of our culture, and that's just gorgeous, just all by itself.
For several Emmy awards, which is amazing.
Which is that's incredible.
So when you talk about Contessa, the group, how many people are there? Is it just you? Do you have like an actual staff? Is it volunteers?
I have a volunteer staff right now. I'm hoping eventually I can actually pay them. And it fluctuates because of that. So, when you have volunteers, they basically can volunteer when they have time, and they don't always have the same amount of time. So I have anywhere between 5 to 10 people kind of working and helping me along and doing things like that. I've got my director Ariel now is she's the one who actually got us all the Atlas Games stuff, and she's been working hard on all these things, and I think she's going to be writing for World of Darkness here pretty soon too. Oh. So yeah. And that's really awesome. I'm like, we're gonna have these awesome authors, and I just hired Christopher Helton, who's he was a columnist on Ian World, and he's now working for Peterson Games and us. But he's a friend of mine. He helped actually coordinate the bundle that we actually got in order to get in here. He's our token white guy, actually. He's the only one on the entire staff. Well, I guess my husband kind of counts too. But yeah, but I mean, anywhere from 5 to 10. But when we get to the convention, we usually have another about 10 people who come in and they're like, we want to sit at the registration desk and help out here and help out there. And there's always somebody who's like, what can I do? It's my hardest part, my hardest job. The hardest thing to learn was to delegate, because people would be like, what can I do? And I'd be like, I had just like this blank look. There's all of this stuff around. We have to do things with it. So I've had to get better at that. But yeah.
Very cool.
And we're always looking for more help, by the way.
Do you go to every convention?
Not every one of them. Because of the cancer treatment last year, I missed UConn and Geek Girl Con we were at too last year.
I want so badly to go to Geek Girl Con.
Yeah, I heard it. I had never been either. And my friends came back from it and they said, well, we didn't do as much gaming as we thought we would, but it's a really cool convention, and so, I really want to go back there. And they're asking us to come back too. So I'm hoping that I'll get to go next time. And then obviously in October, we have 2 conventions running at the same time, so I have to split my staff and send one person to one. Yeah, exactly. At first they were like, no, we should just pick one, and I was like, but I can't pick one. They're both worthy. They're both started by people who really want diversity in gaming, and I want to support both of them. So I'm splitting my staff.
Now, okay, so Contessa and RPG designing, is that the full-time job for you, or do you have another job that you also do?
That's now my full-time job. I was a software developer. I worked in video games for about a decade, and then I worked in e-commerce for about 5-6 more years before I just burnt out on it. I couldn't handle the tech space anymore, and it led to nervous breakdowns and mental health issues, and then I was finally like, I'm done, and I had to walk away from it. So thankfully, my husband's a teacher, so we don't have a great salary now.
She is
yeah. What grade?
I teach high school, juniors and freshmen.
Yeah, he teaches high school drama. He teaches all 4. Yeah. And so, he works long hours and he doesn't get paid as much as he should be, and he's still let me follow my dream in order to do this. So, that's really cool.
Well, and it's something, there's obviously a lot going on here, but there's always a lot of support behind the scenes that doesn't get seen. So it's very cool to have a support structure to I'm sure push you as well as support you to do this. And everything.
Oh yeah. It's been a crazy 5 years. It's like there were times in the first 2 or 3 years when I really wanted to quit because I was getting harassed so much, or people were bugging me, or there was constantly, oh, you're discriminated against white male GMs. And just like, you could literally go anywhere else and run your game,
right.
Anywhere else, in the entire freaking convention, and just leave us alone. And it was even weirder when it was online and they were saying that. And I'm like, you can go run an online game tomorrow.
The internet is a
what's
big
wrong
place.
with sitting down and playing and enjoying someone else's storytelling voice?
That was a good question that a lot of people had too. It's like, well, why don't you just sit down and play for a while?
Yeah, and I think that's what improves all gaming is having multiple voices in different, because everybody has a different storytelling voice,
right?
And somebody probably has done it better than me. So guess what? Find what they do well, steal it, and use it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's how you get better.
Yeah.
And like some people that are just coming into the gaming community want to be similar to the other people they're playing with.
Right.
And they're more comfortable that way because when you're coming into a game for the first time, you might not be comfortable doing it with someone that you don't identify with in any way.
Right.
So I completely get this. This is refreshing and nice.
Yeah.
I've been gaming for quite a while, and things are like it used to be very an insular community. Like the conventions are. I never went to conventions. I had our gaming group, and that was our circle, and to approach from the outside to start a new gaming group was not easy.
Yeah.
And that has changed in big ways now, through a lot of hard work and effort of people like you and, everybody here. So it's really so much different and for the better, really,
Oh yeah,
it's like the golden age of gaming.
Oh yeah. Since Contessa's come on the scene, I mean, just in the last couple of years, I've seen so many podcasts run by women, run by people of color. People are talking about things, they're getting into things, they're running games. It can be kind of hard to get marginalized people to run games because they're scared of it, to be perfectly honest. And I understand why, especially conventions. When you're in your home groups tend to be a little bit more balanced as far as the types of people in there because they're your friends, and your friends groups tends to be a little bit more diverse than when you're coming to a convention. And it's harder at a convention because there's so many horror stories about getting treated badly at a gaming table or just being talked down to, or any of these things that happen to people all the time. And there's some flat out racist things that'll go on, and that kind of stuff. And it's nice for them to know we have to talk a lot of people into it. It's like no, we'll keep you safe. You'll be in our space, and we do all of the work for them.
Outside of that, it's scary to do even if you are comfortable in the space.
Right,
the first time doing it, I remember at Hoosier Con I ran my first convention game, and I've been playing RPGs forever, and I was like,
it's
can I really do this?
Right.
So let alone, even if you're comfortable in the space, it's a whole nother hurdle in and of itself.
Right. Now imagine that without all of your unearned white guy confidence.
Right.
And probably some issues and fear of
good splash of anxiety.
Yeah, and lots of anxiety, And then, but we get people in here and we say, we'll keep you safe. We submit their games for them. We do the work for them. All of the figuring out how to get to the convention stuff we do for them. Kind of like a concierge service. And then when they get here, all they have to do is run their game or run their panel or, whatever it is. We'll take care of the recording of the panels. We'll take care of making sure that you have players and advertising for your game, all that kind of stuff. All you have to do is show up and run. Just make it as low bar as possible. That's all you have to do. And they come and they run and they love it. And they're GMs for life. And they go on. I mean, we've never been to GaryCon, and I probably will never go to GaryCon. But there are more women now running games at GaryCon because they ran games at Contessa at Gen Con or at some other convention that they went to, and that gave them the confidence to go into a really male space and run a game.
But the first hurdle is the hardest, and then after that,
right, exactly. And then we have like several GMs who have gone on to become game designers and have designed their own games and are now running their games, which is really incredible. Emily Reinhardt is here. Actually, I don't think she's running tonight. I think she might be running tomorrow night. But she's running her own game about magical princesses that she created because she was a Contessa GM first, because she got that confidence and that boost to be able to go out and do it. And the GMing is the gateway to becoming a designer. So you get people in the GM seats. Pretty soon they're like, I can do this. Yeah, I can make this better. matter. They start having opinions about rules and where they should be and, what they should be and how they should talk to people, and how the game should go. And all of a sudden they're designing a game and you're like, there you go. We've just added a new freelancer to the pool.
So are you GMing any games while you're here, or do you normally?
Yeah, I try to do at least one or two. Last year, I did my first playtest of The Incompetent Watchmaker, the game I'm making for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. This year, I'm giving that one a break because I haven't had much time to work on it. I'm running Tales from the Loop on Saturday night, and I was supposed to moderate Werewolf earlier, but I had Reese do it for me, so I could play. So we got some Ultimate Werewolf going on too that I'm helping to moderate, but that's about it this year.
So when you get the opportunity to play games, where do you live with that? What are your favorite games to play?
I go back and forth. I don't play a lot of OSR games anymore. I used to play them a lot. I have a Tuesday night gaming group, a regular group run by Christopher Helton, and we've been playing for longer than Contessa's been around, so at least 5 years, 6, 7 years, something like that. And we almost switch systems like once a month, I swear. And Chris can't decide on one.
We have a similar problem.
Yeah. It's gamer ADD is what I call it.
Weird.
And I'll really play any system as long as the game sounds interesting, So I've been playing some Fate-based stuff. I forget what else we were playing, but we've been through everything.
Right.
We played RuneQuest 2nd Edition once.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. We played Traveler before, like original Traveler, and we've been able to go through all of these different gaming systems, and I'm not really that picky about them. I started out with AD&D, and then I played a whole lot of Vampire until I got sick of it. And then I played Werewolf, because Werewolf was my favorite White Wolf thing that they ever did. And I was just stuck on it, and I loved it. So I played lots and lots of Werewolf. And then I just go back and forth between, whatever seems interesting at the time. Yeah, I'm a vanilla and chocolate ice cream kind of person.
Even when they get melty and mixed together.
Yeah.
Is there a game on your shelf that you want to get to but haven't?
Yeah. Well, let me think about this. I want to run a Cypher system game. I want to write like a girl band game. Yeah, using Cypher system, and it's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I haven't even gotten to really read it. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually writing for Monty Cook in their next. They're doing a Kickstarter right now for a game for players. Yeah, best game ever. And I'm a contributor and a consultant on it as well. So that's going to be a ton of fun. But I've had Cypher system for like 3 years now, and I haven't gotten to read the book. And I have some great ideas that I want to, just ideas floating around that need a generic system in order for me to attach to them.
That's comforting. We all have a couple on our shelves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm just always curious because it's that, like, you have this, like, white whale that, like, one day.
I'll get there one day.
Mine's Shadows of Estern. And then
I have 2. I'm going to run Clockwork Dominion one day and have Dreams and Magic one day.
One day.
I bought them both at a convention.
Here.
One day.
Here.
While back. I've been trying to add more inclusivity in the games that I'm running. So more couples that aren't your typical male-female couple. More things that are just not what people are used to seeing in a game. And I know that there are writers out there trying to include that in games. Mm-hmm. So my question, since I know that you write games, is how do you include it in games without it being maybe artificial feeling? And when you do include it into games, what's the best way to include it into a game for children?
Ooh.
Sorry, totally hard questions, but I want to know.
Children adapt super duper well, and you explain transness to a child, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. They have no problem with it. Yeah.
You would think in a place where we all play make-believe all the time that the idea of changing identities would not be that difficult to grasp.
I know.
Elves, yes. Dwarves, yes.
I know that my girls personally don't care if somebody wants to marry a girl or a guy.
Right.
They sometimes want to get a wife, sometimes they want to get a husband, but they're way young still. But I'm like, how do you include it in a game designed for children without, I don't know.
I include it in like my NPCs. I like trying to show people that it's okay to do that. I just did Swords and Wizardry a couple years ago with an all-female design staff. I should say all-woman design staff. Like some of the things that we did is we made sure that we had an elf of color in there. Elves are usually white, and dark elves tend to be
evil,
Drow, and I just wanted like a normal everyday elf who happens to have a darker skin tone than everybody else, and who is a little bit different than everybody else, and to try and work that in there. I did a lot of art requests that went along the lines of, I want people that you can't tell the gender of. I want people you can tell the gender of one way or the other, definitely. I want women with strong arms, I want women that look like they can wield an axe, I want wizards that look like they've been reading books for their entire life, I don't want them to be all buff, and things like that. I feel like if you start adding those in, and when you do that, people see that it's okay. And then they start pulling in more things in themselves. I actually, whenever I have nameplates, like at conventions, I'll also have pronouns on them. And I'll encourage people to play characters that are non-binary, that are characters that are all over the place. And they do quite often do that. And putting in, it's just making it part of the fabric of the world that you're actually putting in. I am writing The Incompetent Watchmaker, and it's set in 17th century Switzerland, or the old Swiss Republic as it was at the time. And I'm adding non-binary characters, I'm adding, gay romances, I'm adding all sorts of things in there that you probably wouldn't find that time. And I'm also adding some things in there like people who have been executed for those kind of things, and avenging them, and doing those kind of things, and interesting NPCs that are going to pull at all of those gender roles and all the things that we're attached to in a historical setting, in a real historical setting. So, and that's a lot of fun, just playing around with that kind of stuff, imagining what could be. That's a big thing.
I think it's important to see those diverse characters in primary roles and not as secondary characters.
Exactly, yeah.
We, Kyle Chenier ran his Blood in the Chocolate for us, and I was so happy when we got to the end to see just this robust woman in charge of this instead of the classic kind of goofy Willy Wonka character. And so we talked to him about that, and I was just like, this is awesome.
is one of my favorite villainesses. I was like, that is such a great character. And the tie-in with her being involved with the female vampire from
Red and Pleasant Land.
Yeah. I was like, this is so I like how all those kind of interconnect together in kind of fun ways. So they have, and so good. Kyle runs a great game. I just can't. It's so much fun.
That's awesome.
I have another tricky question for you to navigate here.
Tricky. No.
At least she gave a warning. I'm sorry. Thank you for the answer. It was great.
There's a sort of stereotype out there that the indie game world is very much, inclusivity, and then the OSR world is kind of disgruntled old Gragnard.
Yep.
Does that hold true, or do you think that's a little bit more exaggerated than what is really going on?
It's slightly more exaggerated. I wouldn't say it's completely more exaggerated. I left Google Plus because the OSR community was I just couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't handle it anymore. But within the OSR community, there's many sub communities and niches that, if you get into the right group of people, you end up with a bunch of trans people around you, with a bunch of women around you, and it's hard to find them. And it's something that I want to change, because I love the idea of taking something old and making it new again and modernizing it. I love the idea of doing that, and I want to see more classic games queered up, as I call it. I want to see more
t-shirts that say that.
Yeah. I want to see them, I want to see people make new things out of them that are breaking the old molds and the old stereotypes that we know. But it's really hard to get past that OSR hurdle, because I'll just flat out say it. There are a lot of jerks in the OSR. And I met a lot of them when I was working on Swords and Wizardry. And they They didn't like my cover art. They didn't like the borders I put around the pages. They thought it was too girly, and it wasn't. You know, I can 100% guarantee it wasn't girly. There weren't hearts all over the place or anything like that.
I saw the cover. It was a good cover.
Yeah, it was really good.
Cover.
I had some really talented artists working on that who did some really amazing things, and we just got dragged all the time. You know, and to be perfectly honest, the book isn't selling very well. You know, and I've had to pull away from Frog God a little bit because of things that have happened in the past that I just can't be okay with, you know, at all. So, you know, it's and that is part of the toxicity of the OSR. And I've been trying for years to get people to say, okay, the OSR has a really bad reputation. You either need to fix that reputation or we need to find something else. You know, we need to call it something else. You know, call it classic gaming, call it, you know, vintage gaming, call it whatever you want. But the OSR has such a dirty reputation.
And it's kind of weird because when you ask people what the OSR is, there's not a good definition, and it's very broad, it's very big, you know, and
well, that lack of organization is probably why it's so hard to make a noticeable difference in actually changing the community, too.
And then also the DIY D&D movement is kind of what's hard to change a movement that doesn't really have a definition or exist, you know?
Exactly.
But I will say, for the things that have been put out, there are some amazing products. And I have basically walked away from fantasy gaming for a long time. And then stuff like from the Lamentations and has totally brought me in and like re-inspired me. And some of the best things, you know, are from those games now. Blown away. And I think it's like what you said, is that they're putting a modern spin on some of these really tired and boring tropes.
Right.
And, well, the Cursed Chateau is a great one. That's a pretty tired adventure, but it has this sort of different twist and spin on it, you know, from the Lamentations. And it's just some of the best things, you know.
Well, there's so much more good stuff to get there, right? And because, you know, I love indie games, but I don't want only unicorns and fluffy kitties and pink and glitter. I want to kill stuff, and I want darkness, and I want to be allowed to like those things and enjoy them.
Right. Everybody does. You know, I mean, like I get people all the time who are like, how do you reach women? What do women want? And it's like, can you define what men want like that? I mean, can you just say
they're people? Guess what?
They're people. They're different. Everybody's different. They want to do different things. They want to explore different stuff, you know. And I really encourage that in people. People who only play indie games, it's like you're only seeing a tiny little portion of the gaming community. There's so much more, and I know that a lot of it is toxic, but we've got to fix that, and we've got to, you know, kind of bring it together, because we should be able to enjoy whatever we want, you know, and not feel pressured to
I always say that no one wants to watch the same movie over and over and over again. Some days I want to play an OSR game. Other days I want to play Apocalypse World. Sometimes I want World of Darkness.
And you know, that was the thing about G+. It was so separated. Like, you either played indie games or you played OSR games, and that was it. And those two were constantly fighting one another, constantly butting heads against one another. Oh, indie games are bad. Oh, OSR games are bad. You know, and they tell you why in many different ways. And that a lot of that is still going on, you know, these days. But it would just be nice to be able to step away from all of that, and, you know, and be able to do whatever we want. The people that I found that are the core of Contessa are people like us that are like, I want to play lots of different kinds of games. I don't just want to play one kind of game, you know. I like variety in my life, you know. And those are the people that I think we touch the most, because we have a variety of games that we run. You know, it's not all one thing.
Well, it makes better stories too, because if you only run OSR games, you're probably not getting all that you can out of the games that you're playing.
Right. And I'm sick of fantasy gaming right now. Like, I know I'm writing an adventure that's fantasy gaming, but it's the historical aspects of it that are really getting me, and that are a lot of fun to work on. Because, like, I found, before I even decided, I knew what I kind of wanted to do. I went back and forth with James Raji about, you know, kind of the ideas that I had, and he helped me refine them. Until I kind of got this idea that started working and building, and it built in my head for like 3 years before I actually got to really work on it. And then when I started working on it, I was looking for an example of a city in Switzerland that was around at that time. I was looking for like a map or something. And I found this map of Bern in the exact year that I want to set the adventure. And it's in such great detail. I could find individual addresses
Oh, wow.
Going back and forth between like Google Maps and this map that I have, I can actually see, this is where the nuns lived that worked at the church that's across the way, and this church was this high at this point in time in history, and this fountain was here and this was there, and real detail. And I actually have a book that I got in PDF form that's in Swiss German that I have to translate back and forth through Google Translate because I don't speak this language.
Right.
and to figure out, but it has an alphabetical listing of every building in Bern and outside of Bern as well. So I go through, I'm in the H's right now. So I go through every single entry and I look for the dates and the times and what this was so that I could put it all together. And it's like putting together puzzle pieces. It's going to be huge.
I can't wait to see it.
Me too. I've got parts of it done. I actually play tested it last year and it went really, really well.
Do you do art as well, or do you have somebody that's doing art for you with that book that you're working with now?
I get to pick my own artists and layout artists. James said I could do whoever I wanted to. I'm going to pick again probably an all non-male cast, again to do that kind of thing. I don't really do art. I do graphic design.
Okay.
So I'll find other people to do and the art, and I've got a few kind of thought out. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll have to see. But like at the center of this story is a carousel. Before carousels were really a big thing, and I want an artist that can bring out that vibrant color and the world that they lived in, and Bern itself, the historical part of it is still pretty much intact today. I could walk around and see a lot of the places that I'm actually designing right now.
It's one of the things I like about Lamentations so much is James sort of gives the writers the creative, authority or whatever, just sort of, it's your monkey.
Well, you end up with things that are just wildly different and really just fun that way.
Yeah. Well, and then it's not vanilla. Not, it's very... I don't know what the right word is.
That's my thing. Like, I like fantasy gaming, and that's, where things kind of came from. So you have to give it the homage. But I'm just like, I'm so tired of walking by every booth and seeing, oh, look, another dragon.
Right,
and there's another dragon.
Yeah. So there we go again. It's like every RPG has to have giant spiders and dragons.
There is more than Tolkien.
Like they made like 4 monster manuals, more than that even. So why is dragons the only thing I see on the cover? Why?
There should be more, way more.
Nobody likes Nan cake.
Well, do you have anything else that, other than that you're working on right now? Anything you want to plug?
Let me think about it.
You have a blog too, right?
I haven't really visited my blog in a long time. I've been trying to get the Contessa blog up and running, but that requires like a lot of work, and I don't have the right person to do it right now, and I don't have time to do it. I keep trying to do things myself, and people keep telling me to knock it off, but because I'm supposed to be leading, and I've never been good at that. So even when I was a software engineer, I was like, I never went into management because I wanted to write code. I didn't want to manage people, and now it's like I need to lead, and I need to be the big vision person, and I need to have everybody else do all of the other stuff. So I'm starting to push into that direction.
I mean,
more.
To be fair,
right?
I think there's some evidence here that
Yeah, kind of did a good job.
Yeah, it's turned out really well. I mean, our women's night is going on right now, and it's full. We have nearly every table filled, and we will before the end of the night have every table filled.
That's awesome. It's a lot. So, all right. Well, I don't think we have anything else. But
cool.
So if people want to find you online, where can they find you at?
We are at Contessa.rocks, and yes, that is a full domain name.
Is that ROCKS?
Yep, exactly.
Like you rock.
Yep, exactly. Right, and we have up there all of our schedules for running things. I've been backlogged on a lot of the new conventions that we're going because I've been working on Gen Con, but as soon as I get home and get over Con Crud or Con Drop or whatever is going to happen when I finally get home and go, I'm going to have those recruitment pages up. So you guys are going to see where all of the other places that we're going. So just go to Contessa.rocks and you'll see everything, including our Twitter feed, our Facebook feed, and you can get connected with us everywhere and sign up for our newsletters for both GMs and players to be informed about where we're going.
Right.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time. I know there's like kind of a lot going on here right now.
That's cool. It's actually been nice to kind of sit down and just talk for a little while, you know.
Thank you again, and thank you for everything that you do here. And I'm glad, very, very glad to see that like I said, shifting gears and whatnot, because you've made a huge impact here, and it's proof is in the pudding around you, as you said. So.
Yeah. Hope we'll be able to do that on a much wider scale now.
I mean, we're local here, even if you don't decide to do Hoosier Con. We have business cards up there, but we can give you one. But if you guys need anything for Contessa,
any way we can help support you.
Awesome.
I've been following you for the last 3 years. It's a wonderful thing, and I hope it just grows and grows.
Awesome. So. Thank you.
All right, right on. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/justonemorefix or follow us on Twitter at Just One More Fix.